This is the Ticwatch Pro 3 GPS. It's Mobvoi's latest Wear OS smartwatch. And here's everything that you need to know about it. Mobvoi sent me this watch for review, but this video is not sponsored. I've been using the Ticwatch Pro 3 GPS for a few weeks now as my main running watch, and I have a few thoughts about it. The processor. The Ticwatch Pro 3 is the world's first Snapdragon Wear 4100 equipped smartwatch. The 4100 promises to deliver super fast performance as well as low battery consumption. And so far in my testing, I would say the performance has felt very snappy. Animations are smoother, app launch times are quicker, and it's altogether a better experience than previous chipsets. Nothing's perfect however, and you do still experience the occasional stutter. The watch strap. The strap on the Ticwatch Pro 3 is a quick release 22mm strap. It is made from silicone and comes with this rather nice orange detail stitching. It gives the strap a kind of leather look with the practicality of a silicone one. The buckle on the strap is made of some sort of metal. The watch body. The size of the watch body is 47 by 48 by 12.2mm. This means that if you're someone like me with small wrists, then you may find this watch a little bit on the chunky side. However, if you have bigger wrists or you like that chunky look, then this is going to be right up your street. The body itself is made from a mixture of stainless steel around the bezel and plastic for the watch body itself. The watch is fairly lightweight, coming in at 41.9 grams. Waterproofing. The Ticwatch Pro 3 is IP8 certified, which from what I can make out means that it can go to a depth of 1.5 meters for a maximum of 30 minutes. However, according to Mobvoi, it is swim suitable. Battery life. Stated battery life on the Pro 3 is stated as 72 hours and up to 45 days, yes days, in Essentials mode. Whilst 72 hours I think is a bit of a stretch, I was able to comfortably get 2 whole days out of the watch, including a long run. This all depends on any number of battery draining settings. I personally have yet to test the claim of 45 days in Essentials mode. Essentials mode basically takes away almost all of the features of the smartwatch and leaves you with just a digital display. But we'll get to that. Charging cable. Finally, a smartwatch maker who understands that you may want to charge your smartwatch on your nightstand, and they give you a cable long enough for you to do it. In case you're wondering, the length of the cable is 85 centimeters, which is almost identical to the length of the iPhone charging cable. As in previous Ticwatches, this is a proprietary charger, but just as a quirk, it is different to all of the previous models. Like some other popular devices this year, it also does not come with a charging brick. The screen, or should I say, screens. It's got 2 of them. The main display is a 1.4 inch full colour touchscreen AMOLED display with a resolution of 454 pixels by 454 pixels. It's circular. The main display is bright, crisp, colourful, and the touchscreen is very responsive. But here's the clever bit. The Ticwatch Pro 3 has a second FSTN low power consumption always on display, and this is laid directly over the top of the main display. This isn't of course the first time that we've seen this technology from Mobvoi, and whilst it can help you out when it comes to low battery, personally I've been a little underwhelmed. Let me explain. Firstly, in most lighting conditions, it's almost impossible to see this secondary display. But don't worry, although it's not immediately obvious, this display does actually have a backlight. You just got to figure out how you enable it. Once you have the backlight turned on, it's perfectly legible day and night. However, to get this to work, you have to turn off the always on display for the main panel, which if you have that turned on, disables the secondary display anyway. And you've also got to turn off the tilt to wake feature. This is very counterintuitive. Once you have those 2 features turned off, every time you tilt the watch, the backlight will turn on, which is kind of what tilt to wake is. so it's a little confusing. Once you're able to see the display, it will give you the time, the date, a step count, and a battery indicator. Sadly, on this second display, you have no options to change the layout, including, annoying for us in the UK, is the date format, which will always be month, then day. Personally, I've found myself preferring to use the always on display of the AMOLED panel rather than the digital secondary one. So whilst it's a clever piece of technology, I wouldn't base your purchasing decision solely on this second display. Sensors. The Ticwatch Pro 3 GPS features an array of sensors, including an optical heart rate sensor, a blood oxygen sensor, a barometric altimeter, an accelerometer, a gyroscope, an ambient light sensor, and NFC. The user experience. There is nothing new here if you've used a Wear OS device before, other than maybe the app menu is now 2x2 rather than one scrolling list. You have all the usual customization options like custom watch faces and app tiles, as well as set a custom function to the lower of the two physical buttons the Pro 3 has. Swipe up from the bottom for notifications, swipe down from the top for settings and quick toggles, swipe from the left to get to Google Assistant, and swipe from the right to get to your app tiles. Apps. The Ticwatch Pro 3 being basically an Android powered device means that it suffers from a common Android problem: duplication of apps. Every app preloaded by Mobvoi has a Google equivalent. The Mobvoi suite of apps includes Tic Health, Tic Exercise, Tic Pulse, Tic Sleep, Tic Breathe, Tic Zen, Tic Oxygen, Tic Hearing, Voice Memo, and a calculator. They obviously ran out of ticks towards the end. The Tic Health app will give you an overall view of your health stats as well as your activities for the day and for the week, assuming of course that you've used the Tic Exercise app to track those activities. More on that in a minute. The initial screen is split into 3 sections: steps, exercise, and active hours. Tap anywhere around that ring and it will take you into a list of your daily goals for those 3 metrics, as well as showing you your calories burned and your distance covered for that day so far. Swipe to the right and head back to the previous screen, where in the middle you can tap on a picture of your face and add your mood for the day. Swipe up from the bottom and you will again see your calories burned for the day and distance covered, and if you tap on those it's going to take you back into your daily goals. Scroll a bit further and you will see the high intensity exercise measure for the day. Tap on this and it will take you into an expanded view as well as a graph for the week. In here you can also get a definition of what high intensity exercise actually is, and that comes from the Beijing Sports University Joint Laboratory of Human Services. And if those guys don't know, then I don't know who will. Heading back out of here and going down a bit further, you're going to find your heart rate. This is going to give you your resting heart rate, your current heart rate, and your max and minimum heart rates for the day. Tapping on this card will take you into the Tic Pulse app, where you can take a live reading there and then and see your heart rate over the course of the day. Next up is oxygen saturation, where you'll get a current percentage figure, although this will be as of the last time it took it. You can see when it took the last reading next to the figure. So depending on your settings, it could be a number of hours. You also get the highs and lows for the day. Tap on this card and it's going to take you into the Tic Oxygen app. Just like the Tic Pulse app, you can take a fresh reading there and then, look at a more detailed view for the day and the week, and you can also look at definitions and get some advice. In here you also have the option to turn off the 24-hour tracking, as well as turn off notifications about abnormal readings. All this can be done in the settings icon down at the bottom. Next on the list is an overview of your week's activities. Tap on this and it will take you into an overview of your week's mood, assuming that you've been recording it. Average steps, average exercise time, average activity hours, average resting heart rate, and your average sleep duration. The last card on the list is activities today. As the name suggests, this is going to show you all of your activities for that day. This will include your sleep for the previous night. Tap on this and it will give you more detailed stats, including sleep efficiency, sleep duration, and your average heart rate. Your sleep will be broken down into 4 categories: time awake, REM sleep, light sleep, and deep sleep. It'll also tell you how long it took you to fall asleep, your heart rate while you're asleep, including average, maximums, and minimums, your blood oxygen percentage, and some pulse stats. And if all those stats weren't enough, you even get some detailed analysis aiming to help you improve your sleep. Underneath all these stats, you will see a settings icon where you can change a few settings. Here you can turn off the pedometer, adjust your daily goals, disable activity notifications. These are the ones that tell you to get up off your arse and do something, and choose whether you want to use metric or imperial to measure. The privacy settings are also in here where you can turn off all of the tracking features. Next up is the Tic Breathe app. Tic Breathe takes you through deep breathing exercises from 1 to 5 minutes. At the end of the exercise, it will give you an average heart rate. It's aimed at helping you to calm down. Next up is Tic Zen. Tic Zen measures your stress levels. You can either do this manually as and when you see fit, or have it take an automatic measurement throughout the day. At the top of the app, it will show you your current stress level, which is a score out of 100. This score will be based on one of 4 categories: relaxed, low stress, medium stress, and high stress. If you want to take a reading there and then, just tap the gauge icon to the left and it will start taking a stress reading. One thing that might stress you out is the amount of time it takes. It does take a while and you have to remain completely still. If the end result of this reading is that you are stressed, you can tap the icon to the right of the gauge, which is a kind of leaf, and that will take you into the Tic Breathe app. Scrolling down will give you highs and lows as well as an average for the day. This will be plotted on a graph and then split into those 4 categories. This will give you your stress distribution. You can then look at this across the whole week. Next up, Tic Hearing. Tic Hearing is fairly simple. It will measure the ambient noise level, giving you a decibel reading and telling you whether it's moderate, intense, or dangerous. Voice Memo is unlikely to surprise you. It has a big red button. When you press it, it will record sound. It does this using the onboard microphone. It's then saved to the watch and synced back to your phone. You can also play these through the onboard speaker if you want to listen to them straight away directly from the watch. That's pretty much it for the pre-installed Tic apps, and there are Google duplicates of breathing app, heart rate, exercise goals, and workouts. Running. The Ticwatch Pro 3 GPS is not a solely focused running watch. However, it does have all the raw ingredients for it to be one. So should you choose this over, say, a Garmin or a Coros? To find out, I've run over 80k using the Ticwatch Pro 3 GPS using 5 different tracking apps. I started by using the native Tic Exercise app. GPS is found pretty quickly, assuming that you are close to your phone. This is because the Pro 3 initially likes to piggyback the GPS signal from your phone, which is a bit of a pain, but once you know, you know. For the outdoor run feature, you have the option to set a duration, distance, or calorie burn goal before you start, or else you can just hit the go button and start running. Once you start running, you're going to see the elapsed time, the distance covered, and your heart rate. Then you can tap or swipe on the screen to see some additional metrics. You can see calories burned, average pace, current pace, and elevation gained and lost. Swipe over to the right and you will see your GPS route. Swipe over to the left and you will gain access to your run controls. Here you can pause the run or end it altogether. Overall, I found the tracking to be fairly close to my Garmin 245. The app works well, it has all the metrics you might expect from a running watch. However, there's no way to customize what you can see on screen. And spoiler alert, this is a bit of a theme for apps on Wear OS. If you've ever used a dedicated running watch like a Garmin, you'll be used to the almost endless amount of options you have to customize what you see on the screen when you're running. In my recent review of the Coros Pace 2, which if you haven't seen it, I will link it up here and down here, I discovered you could have as many as 6 data fields across 5 pages from 46 different metrics. This meant that at any one time you could display up to 30 different data fields. With the Tic Exercise app, however, you get what you're given. When it comes to visibility of those data fields, you have a few options depending on what settings you have active at the time. And this is important. There's no option to have a different choice of settings just for running. Whatever settings you have on the watch before you run also applies to when you're running. Say for instance, you're trying to save as much battery as possible when you're using the watch day to day. You turn off the always on screen and you disable tilt to wake. Now you'll be utilizing the second screen with the backlight active as I mentioned before, but this is also true when you're running. When you begin your run, the the main screen will time out and turn off, switching over to the secondary display. This will then show you all of the same metrics as before with the addition of the time of day. The difference is, it shows them all on one screen. Again, there's no option to customize this layout, although it is nice to have the option of having all of the metrics on one screen rather than having to scroll or tap through like you do when you're using an AMOLED display. If you want to return to the AMOLED screen while you're running, hit the top button and it will reactivate the main display. This I actually think is the best use of the second display. It's just a shame that you can't customize it and that this can't be set to only activate when you're running, for instance. If you're an always on tilt to wake kind of person, you're gonna see the black and white version of what's on the main display. Then with a flick of the wrist, you're gonna see the whole thing in full color. I should point out that you can only scroll through to the other stats when the screen is fully active. Always on with no tilt to wake will give you a kind of halfway house, meaning that you need to hit the top button to reactivate the screen. Now, while all of this applies to the Tic Exercise app, not all apps follow this convention. And of all the 5 apps that I've tested, only one allows you to see the metrics on the second display, and that is the Tic Exercise app. All the others turn off the screen unless you have the always on display or tilt to wake features enabled. So what are the other apps I've tried? Here's a quick roundup. First of all, Nike Run Club. I tried this a few years ago when it was in beta on Wear OS, and I'm happy to say that the sign-in process is much easier and the app works well. You can even do some customization of data fields. Google Fit, very basic with no customization, and on my first 16k run when I was using it, it only recorded 90 meters. Although when you look at the map, it does show the full GPS route. So I don't know what happened there. Strava, probably the most popular running app / website out there, but the app again, very basic, no customization, and it too failed to record a 16k run. It was slightly more generous than the Google Fit app, giving me 890 meters, but on this occasion, no GPS route at all. And finally, Adidas Running. Formerly Runtastic, this app also allows some basic customization, actually the best of the bunch. However, you can only see your post-running stats once on the watch. Once you come out of it, it disappears forever. And what makes it worse is that when you switch over to the mobile app, some of the stats that you got on the watch are now behind a paywall. So it sounds like the best running app is the native one, right? Well, not exactly. If you have any intention of sharing your running data with any other platform, then this is a no-go. There are no options to link this with any third-party apps or even export your file so that you can upload it somewhere else manually. You can share a picture to your social media or save it to your photos, but that doesn't really help. Also, there are some visual glitches in the mobile app. None of the apps I used more than once, and they were all used on the same 16k route. Let me know if you'd like me to do some more in-depth testing on Wear OS running apps in the comments, and I will make a separate video. GPS. Talking of GPS, the Ticwatch Pro 3 GPS features 5 different satellite navigation positioning systems. It supports GPS, GLONASS, Beidou, Galileo and QZSS. Whilst the Ticwatch Pro 3 GPS features GPS in the watch, as I mentioned before, it does favour piggybacking the GPS signal from your phone during its initial grab of GPS location. This can be a little bit frustrating at times and can mean that it takes a little bit longer than necessary to get that location. GPS accuracy. GPS accuracy has been a little bit of a mixed bag, depending on what tracking app I've been using. There's been a few strange lines produced and a few gaps in the route altogether. But overall, I would say distances have been consistent with my Garmin 245, if a little short in places. The Adidas app in particular tracked very close to the 245, both in distance and the GPS route. Supported activities. The Ticwatch Pro 3 supports 11 different activities in the Tic Exercise app. They are outdoor run, outdoor walk, indoor run, cycling, indoor cycling, freestyle, pool swimming, rowing machine, elliptical machine, body mechanics, trail running, mountaineering, and yoga. Don't forget though, this is a Wear OS device, so of course Google is there to step in for any sports that you are missing. The Google Workouts app has 96 different activities that it can track. I'm not going to list them, but basically if you've heard of the sport, it will likely track it, and probably a few you haven't heard of. You can of course also choose from a plethora of other apps on the Google Play Store. Phone calls. If you're sporting an iPhone, as far as I can make out, you will only be able to accept and decline calls. You won't be able to take or make them from the Ticwatch. If you're an Android user, as long as you're in range of the phone, you're going to be able to make and receive calls directly on the watch. Connectivity. The Ticwatch Pro 3 pairs to either an iOS device or an Android device. It does this via Bluetooth and also syncs directly with Wi-Fi. Whilst the setup process is fairly painless, I have found reconnecting the device after a prolonged absence from the phone to be a bit of a pain sometimes. If you like to leave the house without your phone, then be prepared to have to manually reconnect the watch to the phone via a prompt. That's everything the Ticwatch Pro 3 has, so what's missing? Music storage. Well, wait, that's not strictly true. The Ticwatch Pro 3 has 8 GB of storage on board, but as far as I can tell, there's virtually no official way to actually add music to this storage. Google shut down its music service earlier in the year and is moving everything across to YouTube Music, but as of time of recording this video, there are no plans for it to replace the Google Music app on Wear OS with something from YouTube Music. There is a Spotify app for Wear OS, but this is simply a remote to the app on your phone. You can't store offline music on the watch from the Spotify app. I did find one third-party solution, but it was a 30-day free trial with a paid service after the fact, and you had to store all your music in a separate folder. There was no quick and simple offline music version of a service that you're already signed up to. So what's the overall verdict? I have enjoyed using the Ticwatch Pro 3 GPS with its bright, beautiful AMOLED screen and thousands upon thousands of available watch faces, as well as many more features that can be unlocked simply by downloading an app from the Google Play Store. So where does this leave me when it comes to recommending this watch as a running watch? Well, that all depends on what type of runner you are and how smart you want your smartwatch to be. The Ticwatch Pro 3 is a very smart watch, and it will do all kinds of things that a traditional running watch just can't do. If you're a casual runner who doesn't read too much into stats, then the Ticwatch would be a great choice. Find a running watch that works for you and stick with it. And although I had some frustration with some apps, at least there's a choice. If you take your running a bit more seriously and you prefer tactile buttons over touchscreens, then I would stick with one of the more running focused brands like Garmin or Coros. If you like this video, then hit that like button. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you would like more of this type of content, then hit that subscribe button. While you're down there, why not hit the bell? Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.